is to present your solution to judges. You will be given a warning with 5 and 2 minutes remaining. After 20 minutes, the presentation will be stopped immediately, and no information will be considered after 20 minutes has lapsed. Following your presentation, there will be a 10 minutes question and answer. You'll be given a warning when 2 minutes remain. The question and answer will be stopped after 10 minutes, and you may begin now.
All right, well, good morning, judges. Thank you all for being here today. We are Team Sierra. I'm Ivan. With me, I have Trevor, Jasmine, and Ryan. And we are here today to present to you a solution for a multidimensional case, which is why we picked the name Setting an Industry Standard. With the multidimensional case comes a multidimensional solution, which is what we thought would be the most appropriate for a case like this. The main dimensions within the case are the market positioning aspect of the case, and then also we have the legal and guideline for the guidelines for the data protection. I apologize. So data protection guidelines, multidimensional case, and we'll be addressing both solutions. And with that, I will turn it over to Jasmine, who will speak a little bit more about the company and the service.
NEDAC has expanded across the globe with about 297 partners, global companies. They have went into the industries of automobile, industrial, commercial, and appliances mainly. They have been looking for an efficient way to provide data for their customers. They have been able to do this with the IoT development, which is they have produced the platform named Foresight, which has been able to introduce predictive maintenance to the sensors that are placed onto the parts, and they are able to analyze the data from temperature and vibrations. All that data is analyzed and sent to a dashboard that can be accessible by the company. This has allowed the company to move from a reactive maintenance to more of a predictive maintenance, which is best suited for the company. And they have, like I said, the purpose of Foresight is to look for the problems before they occur and to stop them at the root. Foresight is used best to prevent downtime and to ensure efficient productivity. This leads to the problems that NEDAC has, which is that since these sensors allows the data to be analyzed and sent to the dashboard, it eliminates the service industries of the customers that they have, which means that they develop a competitive relationship with the customers, and they do not want that. So to do this, NEDAC has to develop a market position that helps them to keep their stable relationship with the customers, and we are planning to do that by efficiency, and Ivan will talk about that later. This is Foresight allows the competitive advantage, and again, Ivan will talk about that later. The next problem is due to the new development of IoT, since it's such a new field, there is lots of threats and security, and to protect the data that NEDAC collects, they have to ensure that the data is safe and secured, and Trevor will discuss that later.
All right, so when we got the packets for the case, we looked and it was like 10 pages of problems. So we said, why would NEDAC invest in this service? Why would they spend all this money and partner up with IBM to develop this service? So we're like, you know what, we're gonna look at the industry, look what the experts are saying about the industry and the service and what good can come out of it. So we found that some interesting facts from PwC, from Forbes, from Boston Consulting Company, and the main common denominator that they all had is there's a lot of money to be spent in this industry within the next 4 years. And if I'm not mistaken, PwC said that $6 trillion will be spent between 2015 and 2020 within the industry, which 0.0001 of that is my tuition, and I will be more than happy to take that money. But what we thought was really fascinating was that Forbes said companies and machinery companies that will be adapting this strategy will be ahead of their competitors. So we thought this would be a very good investment for NEDAC that is worth pursuing. So going back to the multidimensional solution that we developed, the first thing we wanted to address is the market position. We wanted to see how they could market themselves. A lot of other companies are researching into this matter, are developing the software, but it's a matter of who wants to take it to the next step. It's kind of like Netflix when they developed the algorithm for what shows you might watch, what movies you might watch, and completely put Blockbuster out of business. Then Hulu started adapting that. Then Amazon started adapting that. So who will take the service to the next level? And we thought that NEDAC might be the best fit to do so because the production, adaptability, and flexibility, which means that when you limit problems, when you limit machinery from stopping, you have wiggle room. When your customers and clients want things a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance, you have that freedom to do so because you're not sending maintenance workers to check up on the machines, to shut them down. You have that predictive ability. As Jasmine mentioned, the machines are good until you get the overheating notice, the vibrations. If something is irregular, you don't have to stop the machines. You can simply check on them before anything happens, which gives you a lot of wiggle room. As I mentioned, with your clients, you will be faster with your service, and also you will utilize your equipment to their full potential, which we thought was really fascinating because if you can address the equipment before it breaks down, if you can see why it's overheating, if you can get the signal and send out a maintenance worker there to fix it, you will utilize it to its full potential before it breaks down too soon. And just the overall efficiency of the system, we see a lot of value in it in saving time and resources. And yes, one of the main backdraws within this concept is that a lot of maintenance workers that work for you are also your customers. But when you save money, when your competitors save money, they will allocate them to better resources, bigger projects where they can utilize their expertise. The other aspect that this can be used to be marketed in a good marketing position is the safety aspect. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 340 workers out of every 100,000 that work in the maintenance field faced fatal deaths in 2015, and the number increased by 100 in 2016, and the number has been increasing since. And that is because they deal with a lot of heat, they deal with a lot of gas and fire. And what IBM did, they published a really good article when they partnered up with NEDAC to develop the software, and that is the maintenance workers have sensors in their hats and in their bracelets. When they sense some overheating, if someone passes out, other crew members will get signals and will be able to rescue their coworker, which we thought could be a really good safety incentive that NEDAC could use to their benefit. The other part of this approach is we wanted something cool. We wanted something that draws the maintenance workers that is easy to use. Think of 15 years ago when you had your iPod, you had your phone, you had your camera. Now you have everything in one device. So what stops NEDAC from having that transmitter on your phone through an app 3 or 4 years from now? And we realized that there is some of that technology already being implemented and tested. If you look at the computer to the far right, we actually dug around and we try to access the Foresight database. We try to see how it works through our own research. And there's a very strict login process. You log in and you get a code, and you have to log in again with that code, which we completely understand. And Trevor will actually mention the guidelines and the restrictions and why that is. But we want something more accessible. This is a very good system that could be used easier, that if it's easily accessed, you can benefit the company and your customers. And so we thought that we can transmit this into a smartphone. Now the problem is, you have the rescue app, but the rescue app is reactive, it's not preactive, as it prevents the company from moving in that direction. The company wants a preactive approach, and the rescue app doesn't really do that. What we thought would be a very good fix is, if you look over here to the far right, to your far left, I'm sorry, you can actually have your phone as a transmitter. If a machine is overheating, if something isn't right, a maintenance worker gets the alert onto their phone. They have the code to which machine it is. They can address it right away. It's a matter of time until just developing the app and having that compatibility with iOS and Android. And Forbes magazine, again, actually says that mobile platforms will be the main system for IoT devices within 2020. So we thought that this is a very doable solution for NEDAC. And I'll turn it over to Trevor that will address the guidelines and the security restrictions.
As many of you may know, concern for the integrity of cybersecurity is at an all-time high, not only for us, not only for our shareholders, but now it's in the face of the general public. They're curious and they're concerned. Unfortunately, to implement the amazing technology that Ivan described, we have to be flexible and knowledgeable about the shifting regulations in the multinational environment. Nothing is universal, so we have to be able to be compliant with the different countries that have different policies. It's very diverse. The European Union, for example, has some of the strictest privacy guidelines in the world. Since 1995, they have been the front runner of cybersecurity, and in May 2018, they will once again set the bar, where it's important because their initiative for cybersecurity affects not only members of the EU, but any company that operates within the EU. So, companies like Facebook and Cambridge Analytica are under the same policies. Even though they're US-based, they're under the jurisdiction of the EU. Next in line is what we see with Canada. Canada's policy emphasizes transparency. Corporations are federally mandated to be able to talk to the public, or the public and vice versa, to talk about the way their data is being used. Over in the Pacific and Asia, Australia, Singapore, and Japan set the standards, where their priorities is about the sensitivity of the user's data. For example, hospital records are going to have a higher sensitivity as opposed to like our user data within the industrial Internet of Things. The United States, for example, is a lot less stringent and is something that we regularly face, as only a handful of states have disposal laws and the majority of them have breach notification laws. But all of those are not uniform. There we go. Thank you. Our answer to all of these issues is to approach our customers with a promise, values, the way that we value cybersecurity, the way they value cybersecurity, with these three things. Number one, we will always conduct tests of security measures on a regular basis to prepare ourselves for the event of a cyber breach. Number two, not collecting more data than necessary. Putting all of our data in one basket leaves us more vulnerable for attack and leaves more liabilities of our clients in jeopardy. And number three, displaying privacy information in a transparent and ethical manner on all devices and platforms so that we, our customers, and the nations they are based in have a clear understanding of how we value this precious and valuable data.
Now we'll turn it over to Ryan, who will explain some of the financials behind our solution.
So the graph before you is a NEDAC's net sales from 2007 to 2020. The green line represents the net sales taken from the U.S. Stock Exchange and Commissions from 2007 to 2016. The red dashed line follows this trend that the data set before it, assuming that the market and the business plan all stay within its current projections. But the one that I want to point out is the blue line above it is what we believe and what our data shows should be what the net sales will be once Foresight is used and implemented, as we've said throughout the presentation. The industry as a whole takes up, or the industrial Internet of Things is about 24% of the Internet of Things when talking about research for this topic. And when you break it down even further, the markets that NEDAC is already a part of makes up 1%, and if since they don't have that much competition yet, since this is still a fairly new technology, that's pretty much all theirs for the taking. And so that 1% is the equivalent of 2016, 15% of their entire net sales is that 1% right there. And so that's also just with the markets that they are already established, and that's not including the safety that Ivan brought up and some of the other concerns that were brought up throughout the presentation. Now, there are some concerns that our solution has, just as all solutions have some drawbacks.
That's right.
The main one being that ours is very susceptible to third parties, such as, or specifically government legislation, what laws they can pass, and how quickly NEDA's competitors are able to make a similar product that can then compete with them in the market. After that, it's a lot less frightening of a concern, as the compatibility issues can arise between iOS with Apple and Android with the mobile app that was talked about previously. I'm sure we've all experienced a time when we couldn't have some app used just because we were using the wrong mobile device. And then lastly, just as any new technology needs, there is a continuous demand for innovation, as you don't, once you get to be the biggest technology in the market, you want to be looking for the next thing, because your competitors are already looking to outdo you, and you need to be one step ahead of them. And if you're already on top, it's going to be a lot easier for you to stay on top if you're looking for that step forward. And so that's where the data security and other, like the app, are very important. And I'll have turn it over to Ivan to talk about some of those concerns.
Sure. So some of the reasoning behind our financial graph that you saw was continuation of the projection, that if the market were to stay, if your competitors were to stay the same, that's how much money, income you would make. When, as the other part of it was combining it with the data projection for the industry and how much the industry is predicted to bring in, and NEDA could have 1% of that, and as you saw, it skyrocketed total income. So just to recap all the points, all the main points that we made through our SWOT analysis, we thought that'd be a good way to bring it all together. Some of the internal strengths, the biggest internal strength is the efficiency. You're going to save time, you're going to save money, and the workers that are upset that aren't working for you anymore now are being assigned to more specific projects, more advanced projects, are probably getting paid more because you saved their employer a lot of money. Maybe a more of an external factor would be the threats that you can face through this task, and that is, again, government regulation that you really can't control, and things of such sort. Some of the opportunities, though, that you see in the market is, as I mentioned before, no one's taken this to the next step. You would have the first mover's advantage if you were to fully pursue this strategy. And some of the weaknesses that we mentioned earlier with the strategy are the communication protocol, security protocol. These things could be hacked initially if they're not secured properly. But we thought that overall the strengths and the opportunities would outweigh the weaknesses and the threats. And now I will turn it over to Trevor, who will conclude our presentation for you.
21 hours ago, my colleagues and I were challenged with a multi-dimensional case covering how best to use our technology and how best to address cybersecurity concerns. And I'm happy to say that we feel today that we have developed a vision, not only an optimistic vision, but a realistic vision that successfully utilizes technology and innovation through the use of Foresight software. This software sets a foundation upon which NEDA can expect to grow and develop further for many, many years. If NEDA takes full advantage of its resources and capabilities, it will not only set a precedent that will become an industry standard, but will only become the standard in this industry. Thank you.
And that concludes our presentation, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Who owns this data? Who owns the data?
Which data exactly? They're mostly projections that are based out of the SEC database, anything that was publicly shared. Are you talking about the income or?
No, the data that you're creating, collecting.
The collected data.
OT data.
That depends on if you do it based off the cloud, it depends on the terms and services that you implement. So typically when it comes to legal fees about that, typically once when the customer or client accepts the terms and conditions, they sign over a certain percentage of the rights to it. So you have the amount of rights that you will need in your terms and conditions. But the only difficulty is that in some countries that some, for instance, China as of now, they don't let you export data. So what I would say that the best thing to do is actually to make a joint venture with China and actually have on premises storage and then transfer the data that way.
Would you say then, you said do it on premises, and then
Yes.
you said transmit it
Yes.
afterwards?
Because they don't allow transmitted data to the cloud. But there's more ways around it that you use on premises. And then the cloud, the data typically mainly goes to the client, but as I said, in terms and conditions, it allows you certain rights to it based off of the cloud liberties as of now.
So I had a question. In your solution, you talked about equipment uptime and
This one?
no,
Is it before?
back one more. Yeah,
Yeah.
and operational efficiency. Is that for NEDEC equipment only?
No. So, as we mentioned before, if a client moves up, if they rush their order a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance, that efficiency that you have within your machinery gives you that wiggle room where you are able to adjust to your client's timeline, but also your timeline as well.
So you're proposing that that's something for NEDEC's internal factories then, to improve NEDEC's efficiency? Is that what you're saying then?
It does improve NEDEC's efficiency and it keeps clients satisfied with the service. Because as the case mentioned, some of your own maintenance workers are also your customers, and that's initially, you might upset them that way because you're replacing them with machinery, but
It would also increase the efficiency of your customers as well, because they can better monitor their own equipment, and then their customers can also benefit from this system.
The case materials, highlight two areas of concern. They give you the area of privacy, and they give you the area of channel relationships. In your conversations, or in your minds today, are any of those an opportunity rather than a threat? Is there anything you could do in this space that would turn those things into opportunities to set a standard? Kind of going back to your title of your presentation, set an industry standard. Is there a way to do something in that area that those could actually become opportunities?
we actually believe that there were both opportunities. As you establish your market presence, as we mentioned, you're establishing a better service for your clients overall, but as you go through the interactions with the foreign countries, as you try to get those patents, as you develop that, utilize your data, you're going to make relationships along the way, and Ryan can touch up on it, but we believe that both of those are opportunities and not as much as threats as the packet claims they would be.
I would say they are opportunities based off of the Forbes numbers that Ivan stated earlier with the news. Overall and technical IoT inventions, IoT, they are actually as of now, up to 2020, overall, it will be 20%. Yet, with the manufacturing and industrial, those are the greater industries that actually would benefit more, as well as services. I would say it's an opportunity with that, especially since it's a new thing, and as Ivan stated, it will become popular soon.
Follow up? Can I ask one more? And
Yes,
so
sir.
you point out that $6 trillion.
Mhm.
Did you guys have any discussion on whether or not that $6 trillion is new money?
This is, I'm
Or
sorry.
Where's that money coming from? What's the source of that $6 trillion?
Yeah, so
And what would
it's-
you have to manage to?
So this is, the 6 trillion is money going both directions in terms of investing in the service, in terms of buying the service, developing the service. So it's actually the clients and the developers. So the 6 trillion is money that is being put into the industry from both sides, from all sides. Does that answer your question? That is, so it's not like $6 trillion put into research or $6 trillion put into revenue. It's all sides, all the money that is going to flow in and out of the industry between the years of 2015 and 2020.
Yeah.
A follow-up to that, so based on Tom's question, the financials, when you projected the financials, by understood right, you assume that Nidec would get 100% of the market share
That,
based on that 6 trillion? Is that the
not
basis for
the
your
6
1%?
trillion, the numbers that I used were, I averaged out all of the different news articles and periodicals that I could find, just so, because, one company's going to say, oh, it's going to be, one of them I think was $14 trillion industry, while the next one's going to say it's only 200 billion. And so I took all that, I averaged it out, and then since I knew that they were usually talking about just the Internet of Things as a whole and not just the industrial Internet of Things, I then took the percentage that the industrial part would be of that, and then I found a few articles that kind of broke down what they believed each market would be in a, remember that oil and natural gases and things of that nature was, I think, 200 million units sold, and so I then just kind of cross-referenced that, and that's how I came up with the 1%. And yes, I did assume that it's 100%, but I also underestimated the market numbers just to be safe.
And also the red line, when we collected the data, we were able to find data up to 2016, so our projections were based on an online inflation tool that we used that helped us project the red line up to 2018. 2020, sorry.
Did that answer your question? Okay.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.